Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Crush and Blush, a Korean romantic comedy from 2008 that was directed by Kyoung-mi Lee, the same person who gave us The Truth Beneath from 2016, a very impressive film that I recently covered on this channel. Now, in a nutshell, Crush and Blush is about an oddball female teacher, played by Hyo-jin Kong, who joins forces with a teenage schoolgirl and schemes to take down this girl's father's potential mistress. So our main protagonist is this Korean woman who teaches Russian in a Korean high school, but is forced to transfer to middle school to teach English instead. Now the problem is that she lacks the qualifications to teach it properly, which creates a situation where her students disrespect and make fun of her all the time. And as if that's not bad enough, she's obsessed with a male teacher, even though he's married, has a daughter, and has already set his eyes on his potential mistress, who is a very young, pretty teacher herself. So a lot of scandalous stuff going on here. Now our protagonist eventually crosses paths with this dude's daughter, and they quickly bond for a few reasons. Number one, they both hate the mistress, which is, kind of understandable, especially from the daughter's perspective. And two, they see eye to eye because they're both ostracized at school. They're both kind of awkward and oddball. So can our dynamic duo break up the scandalous affair between the teacher and his potential mistress? So I've covered some unconventional romantic comedies on this channel before. Stuff like Couples, or even Castaway on the Moon if you decide to classify it as a romantic comedy. But Crush and Blush is another film that proves that the South Korean film industry has a lot of range within the genre of film. I mean, this is a sharply intelligent, emotionally bitter, and undeniably quirky movie that successfully avoids most genre cliches and conventions along the way. And we could take a look at each of these qualities here. I mentioned that it's intelligent. Well, it's intelligent in the way that it uses its humor. And it relies basically on character-based situational comedy that's rooted in the personality quirks of our protagonists. Now, one of my favorite scenes, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it involves a lengthy internet messaging exchange. Now, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, but I really enjoyed the script writing of that sequence and how it progressed, and it uses the character personalities really, really nicely. Now, this film is also emotionally bitter, I mentioned, because you essentially have three women who are involved, or want to be involved, in a very unhealthy relationship. You have a protagonist, the mistress, and the wife. So there's a lot of dysfunctional romance in this. And you also have the daughter, who is dealing with a dysfunctional parenting scenario. You know what I mean? I mean, this guy's cheating on his wife, and he's got a daughter. That's a no-no. You know what I mean? So this is not a lovey-dovey romantic comedy at all. And I've read some reviews online that claim this film to be a black comedy, which is kind of understandable because the main theme in this film really is adultery, you know what I mean, or one of the main themes. And actually, when you think about it, all of the characters are very selfish people who have certain unlikable qualities about them, but this movie draws their relationships in very interesting ways, and it helps to balance things out. And finally, I mentioned that this film is undeniably quirky, and that's because of the temperament of our lead protagonist. Now, Hyo-jin Kong's character is very awkward and immature for her age. I mean, she's a teacher, and when she interacts with the schoolgirl, she almost acts her age. She really kind of does. She also has some physical quirks about her, like how her face turns red when she's stressed out. Hence the title of the film, Crush and Blush, right? So yes, her character is very odd, but she portrays her in a very human, realistic way, and her unorthodox friendship with the schoolgirl is actually nicely developed over the course of the film. And they have some very funny exchanges and, I guess, experiences, which really helps them kind of bond as friends, you know what I mean? Now, Hyo-jin Kong actually made my top 10 favorite Korean actresses list when I did that list podcast with Corey from Pieces of Work a few months ago. Now, in that video, I mentioned that she usually plays a very grounded acting style and grounded characters, but I also specifically mentioned Crush and Blush in that video because it's one of her stranger roles. and she pulls it off very nicely. You know, this character could have been very grating for the viewer, very grating on the nerves, because it requires an expressionistic performance. You know, she's kind of quirky, she's expressionistic, but thankfully, the filmmakers got an actress who could handle it, and she, like I said, she pulls it off very nicely. Her performance in this is actually quite highly acclaimed, so to let you know. So yeah, I definitely recommend Crush and Blush. I mean, just make sure that you're in the mood for like a quirky and awkward film. You know, it definitely has some uncomfortable moments to it. Nothing like, there's no violence or, I mean, there is some sexual innuendo at times, but no sex scenes, I don't think, or very few, or very little of that type of content. But it's definitely a little awkward with an awkward protagonist. So if you're not in the mood for that, you may want to put it on hold, but if you're open to it, this is good stuff. It's very good. Unfortunately, it's more difficult to find nowadays for viewing. A few months ago, I purchased a Region 3 DVD on eBay with English subtitles, so check there first. I think there's a few more copies floating around out there. But if you have the chance, check this one out. And as always, we will see you next time.